Yes, based on the fact that it's Sam's responsibility,
Absolutely.
100%.
Mr. Parati?
I would say yes. Also say that
Look at it for next year.
look at it for next year and make sure that we're trying, exhausting, hiring people from the town first and then posting it. But ultimately, Sam does the interviews and picks who he wants to get part of that. I'd say yes, we got 3 people willing to work, and that's quite a lot these days.
And
I wouldn't want to give it up.
they usually do some of the coaching for them too, you know what I mean? They have in the past. I can't speak for these, but they also help out with this youth program. Again, I don't want to speak for Sam. I just, like I said, I'm not stepping on him. He's a department head. He makes his own decisions.
So yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Facto?
I'd like to say yes and just comment, Sharon, on the town residency due to the fact that the highway department, right now, they have several who are non-town residents. So that's just the point I want to make.
So you were yes?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Randall?
And I missed you. Did you say yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm a yes. And I hope every resolution tonight doesn't take that long. You got all the notes on that? I'm just gonna put down next year. We will look into, guidance.
Good night.
Summer help. Does that make sense to everybody?
Oh, Larry.
What the department head?
Larry, leave me your umbrella, please. Leave me your umbrella, please. Stop right here.
We've never stepped on.
No.
That's what I'm saying.
I just wanted to make a point.
You did.
Thanks.
Okay.
It's kind of like my wife. I argue with her, she
And then-
wins, but at least I got my point in.
Okay. All right. I know he's gonna appreciate it, and so am I. The fields are getting mowed. All right. A motion by where the Office of the State Comptroller in coordination in cooperation with the Association of Towns is holding a town finance school in Albany on May 15 through the
Oh, we gotta
16th
change it, 23.
of 2023.
Yeah,
23.
Oh, yeah, that,
As amended. Whereas Reginald Facto, town councilman, would like to attend this training, be it therefore resolved that the town board authorizes the attendance of said conference and expenses to be chargeable to the general fund as provided for in the 2023 budget. You got it right down there. Cost to the town is $2,000 pre-registered. I'm just kidding.
I knew he was gonna say that, because it's me.
$200. So anyways, $200 pre-registration, $228 for 2 nights lodging, $207 for meals, and $196.50 for mileage. So that's what it's gonna cost. Yeah, I did all up. I'm not rounding it all up. I'm just glad somebody's going to train. So, can I get a motion?
Motion.
My Vern,
Second.
Mr. Pirani. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hamel?
yes.
Mr. Parati?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Facto?
Abstain.
Mr. Randall?
Yes. So approved. Alright, resolution 2349? No, 47. 47. It was just late on the copier, couldn't read that. Be it resolved that the town board of the town of Schuyler Falls approves the following highway fund budget transfers from DA.9950.900 transfer to capital projects fund $45,000 to DA.5130.200 machinery and equipment, the same amount, $45,000, to cover the cost of the new equipment that Mike is purchasing, or would like to purchase, that we've already said we would, so, for the most part.
And that piece of equipment is?
It's not, it's equipment. So, he has asked, which I think we should have the resolution in here, for $15,000 for new plow truck, and then we transferred $200,000 out of the general to help pay for the front end loader, but we still need the difference of the front end loader.
Okay.
Okay. And I think he was still looking at a trailer that we haven't approved yet, but.
Right.
So this is extra that we didn't plan on?
Well, it's in the budget already. All we're doing is transferring
Transfer.
from one line to the other. Because he has 45,000 in for capital improvement projects up there. But basically, we took another 200 for the floor. And that's really a capital improvement project up there. So, we're paying for that out of the general, and we can't get that back. Once we transferred that $200 or 200,000 into the highway, it's gonna stay there anyways. We can go from the general to the highway, we can't go from the highway back to the general. But that was to take care of that floor project. In other words, we don't believe that he's gonna need anything out of his capital projects up there. He's gonna need it mostly in his equipment and machinery. If that makes sense. Did I lose anybody? Alright, so I need a motion.
Yes.
Reggie? Second?
I'll move.
I'll
move.
Okay.
Now that I know what it's for.
Okay. You know what to ask. Hi, Sherm. Any discussion?
Yeah, I only got one question on that.
Yep.
Mike, are you sure getting that truck that cheap, you bumped into it? And, I mean, that's almost a gift. I hate to say it, it's just,
It is.
it's a scary situation,
No, it's not.
with a truck that expensive,
Yeah.
selling it that cheap.
Yeah.
Are they selling it as is? Or they tell you as is while you're getting it?
I'm sure it's gonna be as is.
The reason being,
Yeah.
and this is secondhand, Mike would tell you better, was that when the highway superintendent from Dannemora found out that that's all they were gonna give him on a trade-in, he goes, I would much rather give it to another surrounding town
Yeah.
than to give it to them to wholesale out and make 30,000-40,000 on the thing.
Okay.
So he goes, if
I was
that's
just
what they
wondering
were
on that. I
gonna,
forgot to ask you that
if
last
that's
time I
what they were
talked to
gonna,
you. I said, boy,
gonna give
that's,
us, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how that price came up, because that's what they offered it to him if they were trading it in on a trade-in. And he goes, I don't wanna give the truck to them, I'd rather
Yeah.
give it to a surrounding town if anybody was interested before we just, he said the same thing, before we just gave it away to him for
Right.
15,000. Now,
Okay.
in good faith, I'm gonna say this, under discussion. Their meeting is tomorrow night. That's when they will be wholesaling, okay? So alls I wanna say is at the bottom under discussion is that,
This isn't the resolution for the truck though.
okay, alright,
no,
So then,
this is the money
All right.
transfer.
so, like I say, when we get to that resolution, I will say on contingent upon them wholesaling it, just so we're good with that,
Okay. I'm
okay?
good with that.
But this is, like I said. Alright, I think we beat that one to heck.
okay,
Roll call.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Facto?
Yes.
Mr. Hamel?
Wait a minute, why you went out of line?
Because Mary did
Yes,
this
I'm
resolution.
sorry.
Mr. Parati?
Robert's
Yeah.
rules of
Mr.
order.
Randall?
That's why.
Say yes.
Huh?
It's true. You even said yes. You missed it, Mr. Parati.
I did, Mr. Parati.
Yeah, she did, but I didn't answer. I'll
Yeah,
say
you
yes.
just kept right on going. All right, that's what I was saying, because I never heard it.
Don't do that again.
Yeah,
This is
all
on.
right. So that was approved by a super majority. Oh,
Bear with me for another 6 months and then you can have somebody
yeah,
else.
that's my girl. I wasn't against you. All right. I gotta work for it too. I'm in the same boat you are. Okay, resolution 2348. Motion. By whereas PERMA is holding their annual 2023 conference in Bolton Landing on May 11th through May 12th of 2023. Whereas the secretary, Mary Sorrell, would like to attend as she handles the workman's comp claims for the town. Be it therefore resolved that the town board authorizes the attendance of said conference and expenses will be charged to the general fund as provided for in the 2023 budget. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Holy smokes, we made it through that quick. By Sherm, a second. And under discussion, PERMA pays for one registrant, so the only cost will be the mileage. Everything else is paid for one person by PERMA. Roll call.
Mr. Hamel,
Yes.
Mr. Parati,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Facto,
Yes.
Mr. Randall.
Yes,
Perfect.
I heard them all. All right, resolution 2349. A motion by whereas a continuing education training program for justice court judges was scheduled in Schenectady on March 13th through March 15th of 2023, and whereas due to a snowstorm, this conference is canceled and rescheduled at the same location to be held on June 26th through the 28th, whereas Philip Van Ortwick would like to, as Judge Philip Van Ortwick, would like to attend the training, be it therefore resolved that the town board authorizes the attendance of said conference and expenses will be chargeable to the general fund as provided for in the 2023 budget. Can I get a motion? I'll make the motion.
Second.
Second by Mike. Okay, cost to the town will be for meals, mileage, and accommodations. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hamel,
Yes.
Mr. Parati,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Facto,
Yes.
Mr. Randall.
Yes. Okay. Alright, 2350. Motion by be resolved that the town of Schuyler Falls approves the purchase of a 2011 International dump truck, which includes the plow, the wing, and the slide-in sander from the town of Dannemora for a fair market price of $15,000. So if I can get a motion and a second, and then I'm gonna add that under discussion, so I'll make the motion.
Second.
So myself and Mike. So again, I will just add under discussion, this is contingent upon Dannemora surplusing this out at their meeting tomorrow.
There's no legality saying that they can do that, right? Is-
What's that?
Well, like, is that fair that they, I mean, I guess I have no idea. But is that legal for them to do, is just sell it to us, like, without putting it out to,
They just have to surplus it before they can get rid of it, just like we do. We have to surplus it under comptroller's regulations. Oh, yeah, but they have to surplus it before they can sell it. So I just wanna make sure that we're not buying it before they surplus it, okay? So
I guess that's
that's,
what I'm saying.
that's why I'm writing in there contingent upon Danamora surplusing this at their meeting on the 26th, which is tomorrow night.
Okay.
It's just, our meeting was before theirs. But we'd have had to wait until May's meeting.
Okay.
And then that would have held them up for the down payment on a new one, and it would have held them up from getting the truck. So we did it in the past where we just do contingent upon X, Y, Z. Do you see any issue with that?
No, but I think he's not talking about them surplusing, he's talking about whether they're allowed to then just turn around and give it to the town. I think there's a lot more flexibility for that intermunicipal type transfers than, you know, putting it out to bid for the highest bidder.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we're good.
We are, definitely, but
All right. As long as we're
Danamora,
good, about them.
that's more their issue, but I think they're probably gonna be covered by, you know, the intermunicipal,
According to what I can
assistance,
remember on my
basically.
comptroller's guidance, if you're selling municipality to municipality, then there is no need for bids.
right.
Well, I guess
That's what I
that,
was saying.
If I'm not mistaken, and it was, what's the town? It's named after a town, that law.
Oh, could be any town in New York City. I don't know
could be
which
Town of
one.
Danamora come after
No, it
this.
wasn't. It was down towards Westchester or something, but
Yeah.
they're written into the comptroller's guidelines.
Yeah,
And again, we're all set on our side,
As long as we're covered,
Period.
I'm good.
because, again, they have to surplus.
All right.
Mr. Hamel,
Yes.
Mr. Parati,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Facto.
Yes.
Mr. Randall.
Yes. Okay. Did you see that it was attached?
Yeah, again, I think we're okay.
Well, we're
It
good.
almost seems like too good of a deal.
They call it fair market value because that's what they were offered for bid. All right. Resolution 23-51. Approval to be re-advertised for public bidding, Macy Lane water improvements. Motion by whereas LaBerge Group, a duly licensed engineering firm permitted to practice in the state of New York, have previously been retained by the town to prepare contract documents for Macy Lane water improvements project, which will replace a portion of the existing water main in the Macy Lane Water District. And whereas LaBerge Group has prepared the required contract documents necessary for the projects, and whereas the board has previously authorized bidding of the project with bids due on April 25th, and whereas no bids have been received at or prior to the date and time identified in the advertisement for bids, now therefore be it resolved that the town clerk is authorized to re-advertise for construction bids for the project using the contract documents previously approved by the board board with a bid opening date of May 23rd, 2023 at the regular town board meeting. Can I get a motion? I'll do it. Mike,
Second.
second by Sherm. Any discussion?
Yep. What happens if nobody bids on it again?
Well, then we advertise it again, or we don't do the project, because this does have to
How
be
long,
done by a contract.
right, how long do we have before, like, the
We
funding?
lose everything.
We don't, we're doing this with the ARPA with 30,000, if I remember right. 30,000 coming out of the Macy Lane Water District, so neither one of those funds are in jeopardy at this point. We got to the end of 2024 to spend the ARPA money. It's got to be completed, the project, by 2026, if I remember right. Doesn't that sound right?
Yeah. Yes.
I'm going off of memory here. I don't have all that in front of me, but I believe that's what it is. So to answer your question, we got until the end of next year to get a project okayed, and then till 2026 to have it completed.
Hopefully we get some bids this time.
Yeah, and like I said, this is why I wanted to bid these things early in the year, because that's what I ran into with the DASNY for the splash pad. I almost fell over when I contacted Joe Denzik at the end of December, and I said, hey, I want to schedule that because we're all set. We got the $125,000 DASNY grant. We're all set to move forward. And he goes, I'm full this summer. He goes, I'll be lucky if I can start doing some of the groundbreaking by fall of this year. He
Is
goes,
there any way, do we have like a completion date on our bid?
Yeah.
Has to be completed by,
LaBerge has all that.
Yep.
They have to contact LaBerge for all the specs and everything. We don't. I just put it in the paper.
And I got him. I got
well, no, my reasoning is because like you say, everybody's got all their projects lined up for this summer.
Mhm.
So like if we had, the project had to be completed by October 1st,
They
can we
wouldn't be able to
raise
do
that to January 1st or something?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I'll ask him.
So take a look and
If we
see.
can change that, I will check into that. I don't see why we couldn't change the date.
It might help
It has
us
to
get
be-
some bids, you know what I'm saying?
What would you do, extend it a 30-day window?
30 or 60 even if you had
Yeah.
to.
I mean, this new bid goes in and
Oh,
we've spent 30 days, no one bid it. So now the new bid that's going out, shouldn't that maybe be extended out 30 days
Yeah.
for the completion date?
If
what I
there is
No,
a
what I was
date
saying
on
as
it.
far as the completion date being the project completion date.
Yeah,
So like if somebody's got all this work lined up for the summer and they can't get it done by, say, October 1st, we extend that to like January 1st to be able to complete the project. Not the bid.
Yeah.
No, that's what I think Reggie was on the
My
same
point
page,
was
is that
the
they've
bid-
already lost 30 days.
we lost 30 days
And
already, so,
If it said that, say it had to be done by September, he's saying we should
Oh,
have 30 days to it and say
Right.
October. Is that
But
what-
that's all,
that's
and
what
that's what
I
I'm saying, is
understand,
maybe we
right?
should add all the way to January 1st to complete the project.
maybe we should try it one more time.
Yeah,
then.
before we go to all the way out to
Yeah,
January.
you see what I'm saying?
Sure I do.
And maybe a problem getting bids because of the time constraints.
And more from Mr. McCormick, do you think that this bid should be on our website, posted? Is there any kind of a requirement in that, along
No.
those lines?
I don't think there's
no
necessarily a requirement.
It's not necessary?
No, I'm not saying we couldn't do it.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't have any
You're
problem
not
with doing it.
prevented.
Yeah.
from
Okay? I really don't, Reggie, but you asked if it was a requirement, it's not a
Okay.
requirement. The requirement is to put it in our
Sure.
Official.
our official, thank you, that's what I
I
was
mean,
gonna
do you
say,
guys
our
think that
official-
it should be on the
Right.
website, or is it irrelevant?
No,
Throw it on.
I don't mind putting it
Throw it
on
on,
there,
try
I
it.
said that.
Can't hurt.
I wouldn't put the whole contract on there because it's that thick, but, what I would just say is a blurb, please contact, the same thing basically we could do, we could actually put the advertisement that we put in the paper, right on the website. But, what I'm saying is, I don't think
I thought
Those
Pat
kind-
did that.
those contractors are gonna look at that, but, because what they do is, your engineer, whether it's Barton LaJudas or LaBerge,
Yeah.
they send it out to
They have their
these
site.
big
Big
brokerage
site.
ones
Yeah.
that throw it out to all the contractors.
Yeah,
And,
it's true.
and that's what those contractors look for, is those sites. They don't go to the Plattsburgh
No,
Press
of course
even and
not.
look at it.
Of course.
They go to the website where these big, multi, projects are listed, and then they go down to it.
Okay. Mr. Hamel?
Do we want to extend that opening date?
No, not right now.
No.
They said we're gonna go one more bid.
If it looks like it's really tight, we can always, I'll get a hold of you guys. All I'm asking here is to re-advertise it, right?
Right.
So if we wanna change the contract to extend that out, I'll get a hold of each one of you and see if that's an issue. I don't think it's gonna be.
Right. I'll move.
Well, we already got you
Yeah.
on there. We got
Motion,
Mike
yes or no?
as the motion and seconded for, so roll call.
Okay, so this is roll call.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, yes.
Mr. Parati?
Yes?
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Facto?
Yes.
Mr. Randall?
Yes. Okay. Okay. 52. All right, resolution 25,
23.
352. Yeah, I'm pushing the years, ain't I?
Yeah.
I had the 52 in my head. Thank you for the correction. 23, 52. All right, this resolution cannot be modified, changed, or anything. This is right from USDARD, so it has to be adopted as is or not. And this is contingent some of the paperwork for the prior to bid. So this is a loan resolution. Loan resolution of the town board of the Town of Schuyler Falls, authorizing and providing for the incurrence of indebtedness portion of the cost of acquiring, constructing, enlarging. Is that not? I am? No, that's not a good. It's not a good call. It's not a good. It's not a good call. Morrisonville Water District facilities. Facilities to serve an area lawfully within its jurisdiction to. Someone I can cut off, Donna?
I think there's a post-it note that was
Yeah.
copied on top of it.
Yeah, the resolution posted.
I think you're
note.
right.
What don't you have?
There's a whole corner.
Let me go get.
Corner's gone.
Let me go get mine.
I got it here.
Oh, do you? Awesome. Give me that one to read. I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
There we go. You just saved the day. All right, I'll back up. Resolution of the town board of the Town of Schuyler Falls, authorizing and providing for the incurrence of indebtedness for the purpose of providing a portion of the cost of acquiring, constructing, enlarging, improving, and or extending its Morrisonville Water District facilities. Facility to serve an area lawfully within its jurisdiction to serve, whereas it is necessary for the Town of Schuyler Falls, hereinafter called association, to raise a portion of the cost of such undertaking by issuance of its bonds in the principal amount of $5,562,000 pursuant to the provisions of New York State local finance law, and whereas the association intends to obtain assistance from the United States Department of Agriculture, herein called the government acting under the provisions of the Consolidated Farm and Rural Development Act 7 USC 1921 ET
EdSec.
Okay, thank you, sir. In the planning, financing and supervision of such undertaking and purchasing of bonds lawfully issued in the event that no other acceptable purchaser for such bonds is found by the association. Now therefore, in consideration of the premise, the association hereby resolves to have prepared on its behalf and to adopt and ordinance or resolution for the issuance of bonds containing such items and in such forms as are required by state statutes and are agreeable and acceptable to the government, to refinance the unpaid balance in whole or in part of its bonds upon the request of the government, if at any time it shall appear to the government that the association is able to refinance its bonds by obtaining a loan for such purposes from responsible cooperative or private sources at reasonable rates and terms for loans for similar purposes and periods of time as required by section 333C of said Consolidation Farm and Rural Development Act 7 U.S.C. 1983C, to provide for, execute, and comply with Form RD 400-4 Insurance Agreement and Form RD 400-1 Equal Opportunity Agreement, including an Equal Opportunity Clause, which clause is to be incorporated in or attached as a rider to each construction contract and subcontract involving in excess of $10,000, to indemnify the government for any payments made or losses suffered by government on behalf of the association. Such indemnification shall be payable from the same source of funds pledged to pay the bonds or any other legal permissible source. That upon default in the payments of any permissible and accordant interest on the bonds or in the performance of any conveyance or agreement contained herein or in the instruments incident to making or insuring the loan, the government at its option may A, declare the entire principal amount then outstanding and accrued interest immediately due and payable. B, for the account of the association payable from the source of funds pledged to pay the bonds and any other legally permissible source, incur and pay reasonable expenses for repair, maintenance, and operation of the facility, and such other reasonable expenses as may be necessary to incur the cause of default, and or C, take possession of the facility, repair, maintain, and operation or rent it. Default under the provisions of this resolution or any instrument incident to the making or insuring of the loan may be construed by the government to constitute default under any other instrument held by the government and executed or assumed by the association, and default under any such instrument may be construed by the government to constitute default herein. 6. Not to sell, transfer, lease, or otherwise encumber the facility or any portion therein, or invest herein, or permit others to do so without the prior written consent of the government. 7. Not to defease the bonds or to borrow money, enter into any contract or agreement, otherwise incur any liabilities for any purpose in connection with the facility, exclusive of normal maintenance, without the prior written consent of the government, if such undertaking will involve the source of funds pledged to pay bonds. 8. To place the proceeds of the bond on deposit in an account and in a manner approved by the government. Funds may be deposited in institutions insured by the state or federal government or invested in a readily marketable securities backed by a full faith and credit of the United States. Any income from these accounts will be considered as revenues of the system. 9. To comply with all applicable state and federal laws and regulations, and to continually operate and maintain the facility in good faith. I'm like you, I need a magnifying glass for this thing, it's small. 10. To provide for the receipt of adequate revenues to meet the requirements of debt service, operation and maintenance, and the establishment of adequate reserves. Revenue accumulated over above that needed to pay operating and maintenance, debt service, and services may only be retained or used to make prepayments on the loan. Revenues cannot be used to pay any expenses which are not directly incurred for the facility financed by USDA. No fee, service, or use of the facility will be permitted. Yeah, we're almost done. Alright, 11, to occur and maintain such insurance and fidelity bond coverage as may be required by the government. To establish and maintain such books and records relating to the operation of the facility and its financial affairs, and to provide for a required audit, therefore, as required by the government, to provide the government a copy of each such audit without its request, and to forward the government such additional information and reports as to it may from time to time be required. To provide the government at all reasonable times access to all blocks and records relating to the facility and access to the property of the system, so that the government may ascertain that the association is complying with the provisions therefore or thereof and of the instruments incident to the making or insuring of the loan. 14. That if the government requires that a reserve account be established, disbursements from the account or accounts may be used when necessary for payments due on the bond, if sufficient funds are not otherwise available and prior approval of the government is obtained. Also, with the prior written approval of the government, funds may be withdrawn and used for such things as emergency maintenance, extension to facilities, and replacement of short-lived assets. 15. To provide adequate service to all persons within the service area who can feasibly and legally be served, and to obtain USDA's concurrence prior to refusing new or adequate service to such persons. Upon failure to provide services which are feasible and legal, such person shall have a direct right of action against the association or the public body. 16. To comply with the measures identified in the government's environmental impact analysis for the facility for the purpose of avoiding or reducing the adverse environmental impacts of the facility's construction or operation. And 17. To accept a grant in the minimum, to accept a grant in an amount not to exceed $1,300,000 under the terms offered by the government, that the town supervisor of the association are hereby authorized and empowered to take all action necessary or appropriate in the execution of all written instruments as may be required in regard to or as evidence of such grant, and to operate the facility under the terms offered in said grant agreements. The provisions thereof and the provisions of all the instruments incident to the making or the insuring of the loan, unless otherwise specifically provided by the terms of such instrument, shall be binding upon the association as long as the bond are held or insured by the government or assignee. The provisions of sections 6 through 17 thereof may be provided for in more specific detail in the bond, resolution, or ordinance. To the extent that the provisions contained in such bond, resolution, or ordinance should be found to be inconsistent with the provisions thereof, These provisions shall be construed as controlling between the association and the government or assignee. And that's that.
And I have to apologize, I didn't do the double-sided thing.
So, Mike, you got both sides though, when
I
I said
reviewed,
Yeah.
the second side.
I had our attorney review all this resolution before I brought it in here, so he's had a day or two to look at that. This is what the USDARD requires in order for us to get the $1.3 million grant money and to be eligible for the 1.7% bond up to the $5,562,000. Now, I also got a hold of Douglas Goodfin, who is on retainer for us for the bond, and I had him do a cover letter which informed USDARD because of the additional funding that we got from the congressional funding, that we're probably not going to use more than half of this. So that cover letter's been in there, and I wanted to just make sure that we weren't, after doing this, we didn't have to take it. And then when I talked to Lucas Manning from USDRD, he goes, we will not give you any more than what you need for the project, period. So he goes, that's a moot point. But he goes, yeah, he goes, that gives you the flexibility to go, you know, what we need to.
So that's actually a little different than what you and I had talked about on that. They're not gonna give you the whole full amount.
They are.
They are. So you're gonna put that in an account.
No. We won't even do anything with it till the project's about 75% completed and we do the closing.
Okay, because there was a
But-
portion in there that
But
said,
what we don't, we have the bond resolution, which is done, which the bond resolution is actually for the loan. That blew my mind when we started talking about the ban. And because the ban is the preliminary money that will be raised by whatever bonds it is that our financial advisor will get for us until we get to that part of the project, and then we do the closing on this, is the way I understand it. And that is, from the best of my recollection from Lucas, that's at about 75% completion of the project. They know you're gonna finish it at that point, then they do all this.
okay.
But they won't do anything, this is all part of the bid, you have to accept, like I said, that in order to get the grant, you gotta accept this. You know?
Right. So you accept the whole amount, but you're not getting the money until you get 75% of the project done.
My understanding.
And you don't have to take all of it.
And you don't have, they won't.
That was the other, because
Yeah.
wasn't there a portion in there that said that if you take the money, you put it in an account, if it
Yep.
accumulates any
Yep.
interest, if it's an interest-bearing account,
Yeah.
you have to pay that back.
Or you can prepay down the loan. You can put it right on the loan to prepay the loan.
Okay, and was there a section in there that said you have to take a minimum of $1 million? Did I
I
hear you
didn't-
say that?
I didn't
In
hear
that
that.
section that,
No, that was to accept a grant of $1,300,000.
Yeah,
oh, okay,
that's the grant at 1.3.
Not the loan part.
okay.
Now, this is locked, but it's really not locked until we do this. This is all prior to bid paperwork. So even though they've approved us for this is, once we get this to USDARD, then we are locked in at the terminology is a low interest loan for 1.75 for up to, I'm gonna read it because it's 62 at the end, I think it was 62,000. $5,562,000 and no cents, okay, dollars. And then to get a grant up to 1.3 million, okay? Because that's what they approved us for. Yeah, like I said, and like I've told you guys, I thought we were gonna lose the whole 1.3 when we got the congressional funding, because that is more than the 1.3. You know what I mean? It's $2,562,500. But the way it actually goes is you get a grant portion dependent on the end user and dependent on how much money you actually get. So right now we're figuring probably about 2.8 to 3. So if you took it and split it, the three in half, you're looking at roughly $600,000 instead of 1.3 million in grant. So we still won't lose it all that way.
Yep.
But we won't have any of it if we don't do this. And we cannot change this at all. That's a government form for that USDA loan, and low interest loan and grant. So there's no amendments to it.
Can I ask you something as a water clerk?
Sure.
It's different than the Macy Lane, because we had to do to get the money and start paying for it. So we don't have to pay for this? So we don't need any money to pay for any portion of this until next year?
Till
Because
we
we don't
actually
have it
use
in
it.
our budget.
Well, you don't have the budget to pay for this here anyway. So that's why we hired a financial advisor, which is Noah, out of Munistat. And what he does is he will sell a band, not a
So
band.
that's a
band.
bond anticipation note. So you get money,
It's a band, yeah.
you get money that you can use on the bond anticipation note, short term.
So
Like a construction.
yeah, for 12 months. You can't go past 12 months, but you don't want to let it elapse because it's going to be a 2-year project. No matter how you figure this, from when they start construction, it's going to take them 2 years. So you'll get a ban for the first 12 months. So about a month or two before that ban is ready to expire, you will then take the second ban out. But we don't know what that's gonna be because by then, well, like Noah said, you'll probably have your USDARD money and you'll have your congressional funding and you'll definitely have the CDBG money, which is the 1.25 million. So he goes, we don't even know what that last ban you're gonna need until, he goes, you might not even need it if all the rest of the grant money is divvied down to us by then. It's ours, but it's gotta get from the state or the feds. The Congress one has to go from the feds. And they've been working on that for a week and a half now. So they finally got a mechanism in place now to get the money from the feds, because that was part of the omnibus bill, from the feds down to us here at the town, which means there's another alphabet agency involved with the regulation of how that's administered to the town.
So every year, the budget is gonna need to
Ash will be
include
working on
money, right? From the Morrisonville Water District to pay for this bond. So it's gonna be a different amount every year.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
The two bands will definitely be different. Because the first band, you might only need to ban like 1.3 million or 1.5 million. Because it all depends on when we take the ban out. If in the best world, it would be this fall before they could start this project, getting everything together. That's what I'm thinking. So, then you will consult with the engineer. You'll know what the bid is by then of the contract and what you're gonna have to pay out for what they think they're gonna get done in that 12-month period. And that's when you decide how much of a ban that you need to take out.
And decide how
The band
much the
is
people are
basic-
gonna pay every year, right?
That gets paid, that has to be paid back in a 12-month period or you reband and you add up.
So you get
what the
another
difference-
band
So
to
you get
cover.
another band. But by then, you should have, you will have at least a CDBG for 1.25. So you would pay the band, the first one out of the CDBG, 1.25 million. And then you'd figure out what you need for the second part of the project. And there's too many variables for us to try to figure it out, but that's why you hire those people. You need a financial advisor, and that's the one that we hired. And he kept it for the whole project for like $3,000. He charged for those, which was 1% of what he thought, which was $3 million. We figured at the end is the most we're gonna need. So that's how he went.
I think,
And ultimately, you get the bond, which is the long-term funding, and that's the one that
That's-
you work
that's
out
it.
how the how the users are gonna pay
That-
the annual
the end-
bond payment.
Yeah, the end user will be this low interest loan. This is the low interest loan at 1.75. So whatever we end up borrowing at the end, okay, is what you're asking, is that's what will be,
But the users are gonna
the
pay.
users are gonna pay.
So they won't know
off.
for 2
And I think
years.
that's every no. Because we're gonna know before we bid it out what the contract price is and whether it falls within what the guidance of what the scope of the work was and what we have talked about so far. I'm sitting here telling you right now, the best that we can figure is gonna be, this low interest loan is gonna be between 2.8 and $3 million, not 2.56 like we thought, because we just got another 2,562,500 from congressional funding. But yeah, we'll know before we put a shovel in the ground. But anyways, all this does is lock in what we've already got.
I'm perfectly fine with that. My question, quick question. When it comes to budget time, this September, October, when we start doing this budget, we will know that we're starting this project, and we'll know how much we have to raise up the Morrisonville Water District taxes at that
I
point.
guess that was my question,
Okay.
because I'll be doing the budget this year.
So the financial advisor will tell you after we get to that part, when we have to put it in the budget. Matter of fact, I gotta that's another piece of paper out of these 29 different forms that I need from the USDARD, is they want us to do a mock, what they call a mock budget. So they wanna see our 2023 budget would say a balloon payment at the end of 2024, okay, for the 2024 budget, let's say 100 and something thousand, I think it's around, they're figuring maybe $106,000, somewhere around there. And that'll take care of your first band, and then you'll be going into the second band. But the bands are paid in every 6 months. Okay, so it all depends on how big your band is. You know what I'm saying? If you're doing a 1.3 or 1.4, it could be 100,000 for the first 6 months, and 100,000 you might have a 200,000. But we're gonna know that going into it, because we're gonna have it bidded, the bids it out. We're gonna know what the construction is. We're gonna know what part of the project we're working on and how much money we need to do it. But basically, the band is the bank that floats you the money until you pay them.
So does the taxpayer, does our budget go up because of this
Yes.
initially?
It's gonna go up, I'm thinking it should go up about $353.33.
For the first year?
For the first year. Based on what you're saying, that we should pay back, and I based it on 300 users. I'm close, right?
Yeah.
So that's the water, each person has to pay extra $353?
Besides what they're paying
If we come
now.
out, based on what we gotta pay that first ban,